My daughter called me 3 times the night she died. I'm supposed to say her name first. That's what grief groups tell you. Name the person, pull them back into the room with a syllable. Her name is Sophie Hale. She lived in Rome for work, and she loved to send me photographs of door knockers, brass lions, angels with chipped noses. Once, a beetle. She had a whole collection, door faces of Rome. Don't laugh. It's how we kept in touch when our calendars did what calendars do. Stacked meetings like bricks between people who love each other. The first voicemail landed at 5:18 p.m. Chicago time while I was trapped in a budget call that could have been an email. Her voice was bright, fast, fizzing with good news. "Dad, it's me. It's one of those days I wish Mom was here too, because I figured out something huge, and you're the only person who'll get why it matters. Dinner when you're up, or I'll call after your 6 p.m. thing." She was always tracking my calendar like a second son. She'd learned that trick from her mother. Notice the shape of a person's day, not just the weather. I didn't answer. If you want the villain of this story, start there. Not with priests or demons or maps that smell like old rain. Start with me staring at a spreadsheet while my daughter was on the edge of the deep. The second voicemail arrived an hour later. Her voice was different. Tight. Someone who just realized the hallway they're walking down goes places it shouldn't. "Dad, I found something I wasn't supposed to. It's weird. I'm not panicking, could you call when you can?" She worked under the Vatican as a research assistant, the kind of job Americans imagine is either a movie set or a prison. It's neither. It's a library that learned to keep secrets. She audited medieval manuscripts for the special archives, Latin glosses, Crusader sermons, the kind of text that teaches you what a century feared the most. The third voicemail is 37 seconds of breathing, not sobbing, not hyperventilating, breath the way a runner's breath changes when a dog starts chasing. By 6:54 p.m., I had all three. By 7:02, I was standing at my office window looking down at Wabash Avenue like it owed me something. By 7:20, I'd called her back 4 times and got nothing. By 9:11, my phone lit with a number in Rome and a voice in Italian that took 2 tries to become English. There had been an accident on Via Cappuccini, a single-car collision into a stone wall. No skid marks, no other vehicle. She was gone before the ambulance got there. Chicago looked the same out the window. That's the first magic trick the world plays on you. It refuses to look different when everything is. I flew out the next morning because motion feels like purpose when you don't have any. Rome met me with heat and scooters and the way stone knows your name. There are cities that sing to your blood, even if you're a tourist with a suitcase and a hole. Rome sings in Latin. It says, "You are not special. People have broken here before." The funeral was small. Sophie's mother died when she was 12. Family got reduced to a straight line, mother to daughter to me, and then the line broke at the far end. A kindly parish priest named Father Benedetti gave a eulogy that was mostly correct facts in a voice that had learned how to hold other people's pain without dropping it. Archives colleagues came and placed their palms on the back of my hand like they were passing current. After the service, when everyone else needed air and light, Benedetti asked to speak with me in the sacristy. Marble floor, a door that didn't quite close, incense clinging to the wood like a memory that refuses to wash out. "Dr. Hale," he said, the way people say your title when they're asking it to be armor. "Your daughter was working on something unusual before. Unusual how? A document reclassification in sublevel C. I knew about sublevel C. I'd consulted off and on for the Vatican for 15 years whenever a text wanted someone to prove it was what it said it was. The main stacks look like a modern library. Sublevel C looks like Rome shrugged and the earth kept going. "What kind of document?" I asked. He hesitated, then chose honesty with a sigh. "Cartography." "Maps," I said, because the word does something to my spine. "Not of places you can buy a train ticket to." He slid a manila folder across the table. Inside, photocopies, old ink on older skin. Someone had written Verum Tabulam Inferni across a header line in a practiced medieval hand, the true map of hell. A lot of bad books pretend to be that. Most of them are moral diagrams pretending to be geography, vice as a city, virtue as a mountain. This wasn't that. Margins crowded with numbers and what looked suspiciously like elevation marks. Little lines that broke my brain if I stared too long. Not art. Instructions. Sophie flagged irregularities in the inventory, Benedetti said. References to documents that do not exist. Except they did, she found them misfiled in a box labeled Conscience Sermons, 1280, 1290. I felt the room incline just a little. "She told you," he shook his head. "She told the database, and then she stopped filing updates. The last line in her notes was in ink, not pencil." He tapped the photocopy. I read it, coordinates match. Physical Rome. 7th gate reads open. "You should have called me," I said. "It wasn't fair." He looked exactly the way a good priest looks when he's trying to carry the corner of a coffin he can't lift. "We thought she was wrong," he admitted, "until she wasn't. Grief makes you selfish and brave in unequal portions. I did something stupid, which is to say, I did something fast. I used my old consulting badge, the one I was supposed to mail back after the last project, and I walked down into the Vatican's ribs. Sublevel C has the kind of quiet you pay attention to, not silence, listening. The lights have a chemistry lab flicker you can hear. The walls sweat sometimes because Rome is difficult even when it's a city. Sophie's workstation was a desk under a rock arch, and it already looked like a place where a person had finished a sentence and left. Her coffee cup still had a ring. Her computer was logged in, because she worked like scholars work. Sprint, forget the world, come up for air when your body tattles. I sat in her chair and I knew I was going to do whatever the next page asked of me. The folder marked Descent Protocol wasn't subtle. The file names were crisp and American: gear list, PDF temp gradients, CSV route notes, docx. She had planned like a medic and a mountaineer. Rope ratings. A harness brand climbers trust with their last words. Redundancy for light and water. A small Catholic sealed compass from a collection that shouldn't leave its case. And then the voice memo. The title had her sense of humor. "If I'm dead, don't open this unless you're Dad." I clicked anyway, which is a sentence I expect to answer for someday. "Dad," she said. I could hear the way her mouth tried to smile and failed. "If you're hearing this, I didn't get to say the rest. The map is real. The coordinates resolve to 7 spots in Rome. 6 are sealed. One says Porta Aperta. It's under a church called St. Joseph of the Carpenters. I know you. Don't go alone. The supplies are in storage unit 47 at Roma Self-Storage. Key is taped under my desk drawer. If someone moves this file, it pings my phone, and someone has been moving my files. I think a man named Tiretti from Special Archives is following me. If I vanish, don't tell the police everything. Finish what I started. Find the truth and car door, engine, the scrape of phone against seat fabric. The memo ended in a rubbery roar and a silence that had weight. I pushed the chair back so fast it rattled the desk. The key was exactly where she said it would be, taped under the drawer with the kind of meticulousness children learn from parents who label the garage shelves. The storage unit held a mountain of competence: boots, rations, med kit, flares, sealable dry boxes, a coil of rope like a sleeping animal. I loaded it into a rental hatchback that smelled like cherry and student, and I drove Rome at midnight, which looks exactly the way you want it to until it doesn't. St. Joseph of the Carpenters is the kind of church tourists photograph without seeing. The front door had a renovation notice. The back door had a lock I would have judged in grad school, and if you want to hate me for that, take a number. There are honest ways to do bad things. I did one of them. Inside was scaffolding and drop cloths and something older than the altar pretending to be stonework. The door marked Servazy led to stairs, and the stairs led to the basement, and the basement did not belong to the church. Rome is layers. You know that from postcards. What you don't know is how the air changes as you move down. It gets complicated. It remembers more. The room at the bottom had Roman brick that had seen emperors pretend to be gods and popes pretend to be emperors. It also had a well in the middle of the floor that was too wide for water and too patient for tourists. The lip stones were engraved with sigils that made my eyes water, like I was trying to look at a word in a language I used to speak. There was a folding table beside the well with a laptop already asleep and a USB drive on a string. The screensaver was a picture of Sophie at a cafe, grinning, mid-laugh, hair in a messy knot. Her password was the same thing it had been since she was 13, with the numbers changed to new dates. Don't scold me. We had that lecture. We had all the lectures. I got in on the 4th try. She done the work. Cross-references from 17th century Jesuit field notes. A Dominican's handwriting that looked like he wrote with a nail. Temperature logs pulled from underground research the church pretends is about aquifers. Dad, I triple-checked. She'd typed in one window, which is my expression borrowed. It's not a metaphor, it's a route. 7 circles, 7 entries. 6 entries were overstruck in red with words like sealed, bricked, blocked, guarded. The 7th had a simple annotation in English, open. I could have stopped there. You're very kind if you think I was capable of stopping. The map looked like a saint noticed geology. Vellum, stiff and translucent in places, edges soft where some monk's finger learned the route better than prayer. A delicate line crawled from a glyph that meant here into a sketched cross-section of beneath. Along the way were numbers and notes in a cramped hand that knew Latin and measurement equally well. Gratus LXX vi, spiritus calidus, rivis cuoris, herbs pugni. I translated it aloud without meaning to. 77 steps, warm air, river of blood, city of combat. I was not a soldier. I am a careful man who prefers footnotes to fights. But there's something you learn the day your child is born that never unlearns. You will happily burn down the world to keep their light. It does not make sense. It is not supposed to. I clipped the rope to a steel bolt someone installed in the floor. I tied a figure 8 the way Sophie had insisted. I tie it when she was 12 and learning to climb in a gym in Lincoln Park with other kids who had no idea what the earth can do. I tested the harness twice. I said a prayer that felt like a cough because I am not very good at them. I put the compass on a lanyard around my neck. It was medieval, enameled rose, holy Latin around the edge. The needle steady like a heartbeat you can trust. The monk said it always points home. I have believed sillier things. The first steps down were Roman stone, then older, then something I refused to dignify with a period in history. The spiral hugged the inside of the well like it was ashamed of where it was going. The beam of my headlamp found moisture that had nowhere sensible to come from. The air cooled in that way Midwestern basements cool, smell of pennies and damp drywall and old tools, but older, as if iron itself has a season. At step 122, my ears popped. At 207, the stairs narrowed enough that my shoulder brushed a symbol that made a taste bloom in my mouth, copper and clove and lightning. At 300, I counted out of habit and found stone giving way to a platform carved like it expected visitors. My light went ahead of me and tripped over distance without hitting a wall. The quiet was the kind you feel in your ribs. The map called this place Limina, the threshold. There were 7 tunnel mouths spaced like an argument around the platform. Each wore a symbol the map's scribe had annotated with sins and weather, and what you should never do. One was marked with a stylized eye that looked back, one with coins, one with a mouth too wide. The one I needed was lined with tiny swords. Wrath, I didn't go yet. I stood there alone and did the most American thing in the world. I tried to reason with a hole. "I'm taking her home," I said like I was arguing with a credit card company. "You had your turn." Something moved to my left, a scrape against stone from farther in, and I turned the light to find 3 people who were not people anymore, but didn't know it enough to stop being polite. They looked like time gets you if it can, leathery, dry at the edges, eyes too steady. One wore what was left of a blue Union jacket. One wore rags that remembered a dress. One had a plague doctor's mask slung around his neck like a superstition he was tired of. The soldier shaded his face from my lamp with a reflex that made my heart stutter. He had a voice from Tennessee by way of everywhere. "Living man," he said like a toast. "We ain't had one of those in a spell." "What year did you die?" I asked. 18 and 62 Antietam. The sun cooked us proper. He gestured at the others. "Marie here lost her head in a crowd that thought it was a party," he said, and the woman gave a tight smile. "And Giuseppe caught a sickness that taught Europe new arithmetic. We were arguing about whether wars end." Marie said, her English lined with French. "It helps to have someone to tell us which way a story went." "They do," I said. "At least that one did. 1865, your side won." I watched the soldier's face learn something his bones had been waiting to hear. "Thank you," he said, as if I'd handed him water. "I'm looking for a living girl," I told them. "My daughter. She came through here 3 months ago." "She went down the angry way," Giuseppe said, pointing a careful finger. "We told her living folk don't do well in the city of violence. She told us, what's the phrase? Mind your business." "That sounds like her," I said, and it did. Kind, firm, goal-shaped. "Are you here to bring her back?" Marie asked. "I'm here to try." "Then hurry," the soldier said. "Down there, anger keeps time." I tightened the straps and checked the compass and stepped toward the tunnel that looked like a scar. The mouth breathed warmer air on me. Somewhere ahead, something metal rang against stone and someone made a noise that was not language, and I felt every part of me that had ever sworn not to do stupid things stand down. "Tell them the war ended," the soldier called after me, voice rising as I entered the dark. "If you get back, tell them it wasn't for nothing." The tunnel sloped enough to make your calves complain, and the rock sweated. The walls were carved with scenes so detailed I wanted to apologize to the sculptor, spears finding ribs, fists doing what they do when someone teaches them wrong. At a bend, the floor dropped an inch and my boot betrayed me. I caught myself with a palm and left a little blood on a stone that liked it too much. The sound came first, not water, something thicker, slow. The map had a word I'd wanted to call metaphor. It wasn't. The tunnel opened on a river wide as a highway that moved like circulation. My light made the surface go dull red and duller. The smell said coins and hospitals and a mouth after a dentist. Along the far bank, an impossible city sprawled in stairs and walls and bones of towers. Windows burned in colors I don't have nouns for. People fought on bridges that had already decided who fell. A bell rang without a church. War there had no dates. A boat shaped like anatomy edged out from an eddy. The figure poling it along looked too tall until I realized he had more of himself than was polite. He wore a robe that ate light instead of reflecting it, and his face was uncommitted. "Passage," he said. The word pushed on my chest more than ears. "What's the price?" "Years." "How many?" "For hope, 4. "I don't have 4 to give," I said, which is how adults talk when they think math cares what we want. "You do," he said gently. "You simply like them." 2, I tried. 3. He tilted his head, and somewhere behind me something laughed in a way I didn't enjoy. 4, he said again. "Or you swim." I thought about a little girl with a missing front tooth who once made me promise that I would never let anything take her without asking me first. 4, I said. Something cold left me that I had never thanked for staying. Knees became 30-mile knees. The boat kissed the bank like a lover who already knows your worst stories. I stepped in and stood because sitting felt like kneeling. We crossed without words. It is hard to be brave and honest simultaneously. I picked brave and saved honest for later. The bone hull bumped stone, and I climbed onto a pier cut from rock that wore grooves where men had learned the shape of desperation. I turned to ask the ferryman about return trips and found only river. Debts don't do round-trip tickets. Ahead, a gate the size of a courthouse lay open on its hinges. Inside, streets that had learned to run toward violence. I moved along walls and shadows because my body knew better than my brain. The compass at my throat ticked toward home with a steadiness that made a lump grow where a prayer belongs. I could end the story here, at the brink, like a teaser for the next episode. And if this was a channel with a cliffhanger strategy, I'd do that. But I promised you a truth, and the truth is that once you have paid, you keep paying. The city of violence is not where I found Sophie, and it is not where I lost something I needed that didn't grow back. That is the next chapter. For this one, all you need to know is this. The map was right. The door was real. And my daughter was still down there when I crossed. You learn the shape of a city when it only knows one verb: fight. I didn't run. Running announces you've brought meat to a place that teaches everything down here to hunt. I moved the way museum guards move at closing, purposeful, unobtrusive, ready to put a hand out and say we're done for today. The city of violence breathed like a boxer between rounds. You could hear it in the stone. The buildings were wrong in familiar ways, arches too tall, alleyways that seemed to have been carved by a blade, not a plan, bridges that started with Roman discipline and ended with modern panic engineering. I kept the compass high on my chest so it tapped against my sternum when I moved, 3 inches of medieval enamel insisting on north, on home, on anything but here. Behind me, the river remembered its price. I felt the 4 years I'd paid smoldering inside my knees and hips like a secret the body keeps until it doesn't. It wasn't dramatic. No white hair in a mirror. Just a grit in the hinge of me, a little less forgiveness for stairs. Sophie had always made me send a selfie when I landed somewhere new. Dad tax, she called it, proof of life, proof of snack, proof of the tie not being crooked before a talk. I took my phone out to check the time and realized signals were a superstition here. The home screen clock spun once and gave up. Fine. We were back to sun and breath and counting steps like it was Carlsbad Caverns, and she was 10 years old again with a headlamp too big for her head, counting each rung of a ladder and daring me not to cheat. The gate into the city didn't have guards so much as it had an agreement. Two statues the size of trucks stared at each other across the opening, one legionary in marble that had sweated, one Visigoth in granite veined with rust. Neither moved. Their spears met above the arch in a way that told you exactly what you were walking under. I did anyway. Inside, the first street was a petition. Shop fronts, if you can call them that, for trades I recognized. Tailors, blacksmiths, a baker whose oven bled heat into the road, and then traps for needs I didn't recognize, like a door that was just a mouth that wanted a promise, and another that sold noise you could throw like a grenade. The air tasted like pennies under your tongue. I took the left-hand side because left is what you do in museums when you want to see the whole show without doubling back. The map pages I'd memorized weren't a GPS. They were a monk saying, "Turn at the place where a wise man died," or "When you smell iron, you're close." I smelled iron, and every history book I've ever loved tried to leave my head. The first fight I saw was courtly. Two men saluted with swords and then tried to unmake each other in a rhythm that would have looked beautiful if you weren't in the same zip code. I hugged the wall. The second fight wasn't a fight. It was a group of people stomping a body that would reassemble in an hour. The third was a boy no older than 19 squeezing a trigger on a weapon that clicked harmlessly because bullets here were less valuable than rage. No one noticed me until someone did. He came at me from the right with the confidence of a person who had spent centuries being the loudest in any room. Axeman. Visigoth by the look of the metal and the beard and the joy. He swung waist height, a farmer's cut, meant to end hips. I went low because my back chose low for me. The edge hissed over my neck and shucked sparks from stone. I had nothing to hit him with. The flare gun in my pack was a map tool, not a weapon. "Stop," I said, because Americans talk to problems first. "I'm not here for you." He grinned like a photograph of violence and raised the blade again. A door to my left snapped open and a hand caught my sleeve. I let the door win and stumbled into the shadow of a room that might have once sold books but now smelled like sweat and pepper and old leather. The door slammed and the axe hit the wood where my head had been with the sound of an oath. "Idiota," someone hissed. The accent had Rome's clean edges. "Don't speak to the hungry." She was shorter than me by a head, hair in a knot like she used wire instead of pins, face shot through with the kind of lines a person earns keeping other people alive. Her hands were wrong in the right way, scarred across the tops like she had caught knives with the back of them. She wore a jacket cut from something that remembered being a priest's robe, black gone gray, collar torn out to make room for breathing. "Who?" I started. "Quiet." She held two fingers up without looking at me. The axe thumped the door again. She kept those two fingers up until the thumps became angry footsteps swearing their way down the street. "Okay," she said finally in English now, as if switching languages was like switching a light. "You're either very brave or very new." "New," I said. "Very. You shouldn't be here. I'm aware. You smell alive." I didn't know there was a way to be embarrassed by a sentence like that. I'm looking for my daughter. They're always daughters, she said, or sons, or debts that look like sons and daughters. Have you seen her? Dark hair, American, smart, walks like she's counting. The one with the compass. She eyed the enamel at my throat. Yes, 3 months ago, she crossed through the East Quarter and asked questions like an auditor, headed for the tower before the city learned her face. A noise I wasn't ready for escaped me. She made it that far, for a while. The woman's eyes softened then sharpened again because softness here gets you categorized as scenery. What's your name? Hale. I held out a hand because my mother raised me right even when hell is the room. David Hale. Eva, she said, not taking it. If you keep that hand out in this city, you will lose it at the wrist. Julie noted. I let it fall. Do you live here? Nobody lives here, we persist. I'm a guide when I feel like it. She gestured toward the door. I'm going to take you 2 blocks. After that, I'm done. My rule is I help once a week and then I stop before the place edits me. Why once a week? Because moderation is the only superstition that works. She cracked the door, listened, then nodded. Stay close. Keep your eyes on where your feet will be in 3 steps, not where they are. We ran without running. Twice, Eva held me back with a hand that weighed as much as a book on my chest, while a column of soldiers in armor older than Latin clanked through an intersection, eyes blacker than oil, mouths making the vowel of a kill. Once, she shoved me against a wall so hard my ribs complained and covered my face with her palm while something walked past that smelled like thunder. Don't look up, she murmured after. This city has a ceiling. I didn't ask what that meant. On the 3rd block she stopped us in the shadow of a statue that had learned to snarl. You're headed for the tower, yes, yes. Then you have to cross the courtyard. She grimaced. It's a reenactment that never ends. Legion against Goth. If you try for it, go when both sides pull back to breathe. They never breathe at the same time, that's the joke. I hate this place, I said. It hates you back. That's its charm. She reached into the inside pocket of her jacket and handed me something that felt like a coin. It was heavier than it should have been and warm from her body heat. On one side a cross, on the other a word scratched in with something rude, home. What is it? An anchor. If you drop it and can still hear it when it hits, you aren't too far gone. If you drop it and it doesn't make a sound, you should stop moving. Where did you get it? From someone who didn't listen in time. She looked at me, measuring. You are not built for this, Dr. Hale. I know. You are also exactly built for it. She pointed at the compass. Because you understand what a line means and what it costs to keep one straight. I have to find her. Then you already knew the answers to your questions. She nodded toward a street that narrowed to a blade. Go that way. When you reach a plaza that looks like it wants parades, you'll hear 2 armies argue about a century. Wait for the sound to stumble, that's your moment. What do I owe you? It felt wrong to take a coin from a stranger and give her nothing but my need. If you get out, Eva said, tell Rodriguez I still think he's a moral coward. I blinked. You know Father Rodriguez. She smiled with half her mouth. Everyone who works this map knows everyone else eventually. It's a small field with a big body count. She checked the street again. Go, Hale, don't make me save you twice. I went. The plaza announced itself the way bad ideas do, too big, too bright, too sure of its importance. Columns ringed an oval of stone that had seen more footprints than grass ever gets. On the far side, the tower lifted like melted night, a spiral of black that seemed to wick my headlamp's beam into the rock. At the base, a courtyard where the reenactment lived and breathed and died and did it again. Roman shields, rectangular, red, dented with history, locked like scales into a tortoise that advanced under a hail of spears. Across from them, men who looked like forests had learned to walk yelled and charged with axes that made wood of bone. It was choreography if you loved injury. I crouched behind a low wall that had decided to be a witness and watched the tide go out of both sides in turns. Eva was right. They never rested at the same time. When the Goths blinked, the Romans surged. When the Romans reset a line, the Goths found a hole. Whoever taught this place humor should be ashamed. I needed 30 yards of open stone and the luck thieves pray to. I calculated angles because math is a comfort food. The shortest line was also the loudest. The longer diagonal hugged the base of a statue of a man who had written down laws, and laws were not popular here. When the sound stumbled, one army cheering too early, the other tripping over its own victory, I went. My shoes were made for university corridors, not hell's courtyard, and they argued with the stone so loudly I wanted to file a noise complaint. I made 10 yards before a shield turned and found my movement. I made 20 before an axe in a hand that had forgotten everything but weight sang level with my neck. I ducked because I have loved my spine a long time, and the axe hit the edge of a Roman scutum with a bang that rearranged air. The man behind the shield did not thank me for the assist. He tried to stab what was in front of him, which happened to be my accidental savior, and then they were married in violence and I wasn't invited. I sprinted the last 10 yards and hit the tower wall with both palms like a man who has learned too late to pray. The doors weren't doors. They were lines of iron that remembered being ore and preferred it. Behind them, the kind of dark that makes your eyes believe they are broken. Two figures in armor that mixed centuries like cocktails stepped forward and crossed their weapons in an X that bit cold into the air. Living, the one on the left said with something like interest. His helmet was Norman, his greaves late Roman, his accent where iron goes when it learns languages. Passing through, I said. No. The right hand one's sword whispered like snow. Returning never. I'm here for someone. Everyone is. Left tilted his head. What is her crime? Curiosity, I said. Ambition, the kind that tries to save people. Then wrath caught her on a technicality, right said, almost bored. Women who break rules wear worse chains here than men who write them. I need to know if she's inside. You already know. Left glanced at my compass. You're still pointing up. Open the gate. Pay the toll. I already paid at the river. You paid to bleed years, right said. This is a different toll. What is it? Leave something you can't get back. I thought of my wedding band, still on my finger 16 years after the woman who put it there had a hospital room that went too quiet. I thought of the compass, which was a tool, not a symbol, but the needle at my throat didn't agree. I thought of the anchor coin in my pocket, the one Eva said to drop if I needed to learn where silence lives. There has to be another way, I said, because Americans bargain even when the menu doesn't have prices. There is. Left stepped aside and gestured to the courtyard. Be killed here. You will wake to a cell and time will teach you manners. I took the coin out of my pocket and let it sit on my palm. Home. The letters were scratched like someone wanted to make a hole through the metal and couldn't. I closed my fist and felt the coin's edge print itself into my skin. My daughter, I said. Dark hair. American. Brown eyes like they always wanted to argue. Did you see her come in? Wright looked at me for a long moment and I saw something human lose an argument inside his face. Yes, he said. 3 months ago, she tried to talk her way past. She is like you. She's better, I said. It doesn't matter, Left said, annoyance now. The toll or the courtyard, choose. I put the coin to my ear like it was a seashell and listened to nothing. I didn't drop it. I slid my wedding band off with a difficulty that did not match its diameter. Flesh remembers metal. I rolled the band in my fingers until I could feel my wife's laugh in the nick on the inside where she'd scraped it on a sink in our first apartment. I can't, I started. You can, Wright said softly, and it was the kindest thing anyone had said to me in months. I put the ring back on. The compass hung heavy. The enamel was cracked, the Latin dulled by time and prayer. The monks who made it believed metal could know its job the way a person can. I slid the lanyard up over my head. The needle jittered when it left my chest like my heart had been steadying it. I held it up, and the two guards leaned with a hunger I recognized as professional. The toll, I said, open the gate. Left took the compass in a hand that had grip imprinted on the palm. Right lifted the bar. The iron lines separated with a sound I will hear the rest of my life, the sound of a secret that didn't want to let you in but had to. As I stepped through, Wright spoke again so quietly I almost missed it. If you see the guardian, don't speak first. Why? He enjoys introductions. The tower swallowed me. The temperature dropped as if the building breathed in and forgot to exhale. The first level was a spiraling walkway wound around a shaft so deep the light didn't bother trying. Cells were set into the walls like equations the tower kept for reference. Inside them, people who had broken their anger on other people's bones beat at bars made of something that sang when it was struck. I kept to the inside of the spiral so if something reached, it got air. Names scratched into stone had learned to move. Some of them were famous for the wrong reasons. A few were famous for the right ones. All of them wanted an audience. One called me by my first name in my wife's voice, and that was when I understood the building also wanted to help. On the third level, a man with a crown of nails whispered a history lecture so perfect I nearly took a seat. On the fourth, a nurse with blood up to her wrists asked if I needed help in the exact tone a Chicago ER uses at 2 a.m. On the fifth, a boy my daughter's age told me he knew a shortcut. I know the corners, he said. I learned where the walls lie. I did not look at him again. Between levels, the sounds changed the way a storm talks through a house. The first level was fists. The second, implements. The third, speeches. The fourth, orders barked and obeyed. The fifth, laughter. The sixth, silence you had to resist. On the landing to the seventh, my knees trembled with more than the years, and my mouth tried on a sentence it had not earned. She's not here. Turn around. I ignored my mouth like any decent parent. At the seventh, the bars were not bars. They were crystallized screams caught mid-curve, translucent, each facet reflecting a face that didn't belong to it. I moved along them slowly, the way you move past a hospital crib, eyes polite, heart on fire. Halfway around the ring, eyes I know better than my own found me. Brown with flecks, the way her mother's were. Then the flecks dipped into black and rose again like someone was stirring ink. Who dares disturb my contemplation of murder? Sophie snarled. The voice had a register my child did not possess. It's me, I said. It's Dad. The black thinned, brown pushed back like spring. Her mouth pressed to a line and then remembered how to be a mouth that could say my name. Dad. She moved to the bars and the bars sang and I almost put my fingers through them anyway. What are you doing here? I came to take you home. My throat did that thing throats do when a boyhood in the Midwest meets fatherhood and you keep talking anyway. Don't scold me, you left me directions. She laughed and the laugh had edges. You shouldn't have come. That's true in every good story I've ever read, and those men still went. I looked at the lock because that's where a historian looks when the world becomes a mechanism. The keyhole wasn't a hole, it was an absence that felt right. You can't open it, she said, and the black welled up in her eyes again, then receded. The guardian keeps the key. Where? Top. She flicked her chin upward. He sits on a throne made of every reason anyone has ever used to hurt someone else. He enjoys speeches. Don't let him do his whole speech. Is he? I searched for a theology I could say in a way that didn't make me ridiculous. Don't theologize it, she said. Just win. Has anyone ever? If you finish that sentence, the tower will decide you're a tourist. The brown in her eyes widened. Dad, listen to me. Do not speak first. I nodded because a person with a map tells you not to speak first. You teach your throat manners. I'll be back in a minute, I said. Hold that spot in your calendar. Bring coffee, she said, and a smile that belonged to a girl with a door-knocker Instagram skittered through. I took the inner path to the top. The 6th to 7th landing had a draft that felt like a mouth. The top chamber did not rush to meet you. It waited the way cats wait on a stair and make the dog go around. He was bigger than the room let on. 8 feet if he wanted it. Shoulders like a cathedral. Skin that looked like iron trying to remember blood. His throne was made of weapons, axes, swords, a rifle stock that hurt to look at, batons, chains, a baseball bat with a crack like a story. He was sharpening a blade that did not dull. When he raised his head, the light he made was the color of things that burned too hot to be pretty. The father comes for the daughter, he said, and the tower leaned closer to hear. Introduce yourself. Every bone in my face wanted to say my name. I breathed once and let the breath go slow. He grinned because he had given me my first test and I had not failed. Good, he said. My name is not a thing you could say and be okay after, so we will keep titles. I am the guardian of wrath. I am here to leave, I said carefully. With her. Everyone is here to leave. Tilted his head like a hawk. Few understand the bill. I kept my mouth tame and counted his breaths. They were slow in a way that said he could wait centuries to finish a sentence if it meant he got to finish it on his terms. You will earn a key, he said at last. We will play the only game this circle respects, single combat. If you win, the cell opens. If you lose, you share a wall with her until rocks forget how to remember. I wanted to ask about terms, terrain, rules. The advice walked up my spine and tapped me on the back of the head. Don't speak first. I let him keep talking, and in the keeping he gave away more than 1,000 scouts could have. Weapons, he said finally, almost bored. Take your pick, anything on my chair, anything in your head. I looked at the throne without moving my eyes. It was a museum of why. Every argument, every story men have used to hurt other men because a thought hurt first. I didn't know which weapon would answer better than the rest, and that was the point. The guardian stood. The room got smaller. Well, he asked, will you fight with what made you come down, or will you try to kill me with what made you stay up there all those years? The advice in my daughter's voice dug its heels in. Don't speak first. I smiled a little because sometimes silence is the only sentence that says anything. He laughed. He enjoyed introductions. He would enjoy finishing mine. Good, he said again, like a teacher who approves of the problem set you chose. He drew a two-handed sword that trailed a light you can't put in a church. He tossed another blade my way, a length of plain steel that landed point down with a sound like punctuation. Pick up, he said. Pay up. I reached for the hilt. There are fights you train for, fights you regret, and fights you only win because something bigger than you insists you must. The sword he tossed me was plain steel. No fire, no aura, no theatrics. Just weight and edge. That should have been comfort. It wasn't. Because everything about the Guardian told me plain things didn't stay plain when he was in the room. I picked it up anyway. It felt too good in my hands, balanced like it already knew the length of my arms, the shape of my grief. My reflection in the blade looked older than I remembered. The 4 years I'd already paid at the river were showing in the creases around my eyes. The Guardian of Wrath grinned. "You came down for her. Good. Now show me how much you want her." He moved first. I barely saw it. One moment he was lounging on that throne of weapons, the next his flaming greatsword came down like judgment. The stone floor cracked. The impact made dust leap. My ears rang like someone had fired a shotgun inches from my head. I dodged, barely, instinct more than skill. My sword nicked across his side but sparked uselessly off molten skin. He laughed, not mocking, not cruel, joyful, like this was fun for him, like I was practice. "You fight like a scholar," he said, swinging again. "Careful, curious, polite, that won't open a cell." He wasn't wrong. My stance was the stance of someone who'd read manuals, not survived battlefields. I'd taken classes once years ago to understand medieval combat for academic lectures. But seminars don't prepare you for a giant who can split you in half with a shrug. Every time I struck, my blade bounced. Every time he struck, I felt the air itself trying to push me into his reach. The tower loved him. The stones under our feet wanted me to fail. "Wrath is power," he roared, parrying and slamming me backward. "Technique dies in my circle. Only rage survives." I stumbled, boots scraping, my sword arm shook, and for a moment the truth crept in. He was right. Rage has stamina, I don't. Fury doesn't get tired. But then I thought of Sophie. 10 years old, counting cave steps with her little flashlight. 14, trying to bake a birthday cake and filling the house with smoke. 26, leaving me 3 voicemails I'll never stop hearing. He thought wrath was the only thing that could stand here. He'd forgotten love can be furious too. He lunged again. I ducked, rolled, came up swinging wild. This time I didn't think about form. I thought about what they'd done to her. Vatican watchers, priests who followed her instead of protecting her. A system that let my daughter die scared, alone, running. Every blow I threw carried grief sharpened into fury. I screamed wordless sounds with each strike, and for the first time my blade bit, not deep, not fatal, but red-black ichor ran from a slice across his chest. He stumbled back, surprised. "Better," he said, fire dripping from his mouth like oil. "Yes, I can taste your anger now, stronger, keep going." But I saw it in his eyes. He wasn't praising, he was gloating. Wrath was his game. The more I played it, the closer I came to becoming his. That was the trap. He swung overhead. I caught the blow on my sword, arms buckling under the pressure, sparks flying between our blades. My muscles screamed. I was seconds from collapse. He leaned close, fire eyes inches from mine. "Say her name with rage," he whispered, "and I'll give her back." That broke something in me, not into anger, but into clarity. "No," I said, my voice was calm, "you don't get her name." I shoved back and stumbled away, chest heaving. My sword drooped at my side. He grinned, thinking I'd surrendered. But my rage wasn't the point. My love was. I thought of holding Sophie's hand on the first day of school, her grip trembling. I thought of nights when she had nightmares after her mom died, crawling into my bed whispering, "Don't leave me too." I thought of the voicemail she never finished, the words she couldn't say because the world ran out of seconds. That wasn't rage, that was devotion, and devotion doesn't stop. When I attacked again, my strikes weren't wild anymore. They weren't academic either, they were certain. Each swing landed harder, cleaner. His molten skin cracked where I cut. His surprise deepened into something close to fear. "You're cheating," he snarled, backing up. "This circle feeds on wrath. Love has no place here." "Then you've been guarding it wrong," I said, driving my blade into his side. He roared, flames sputtering. We locked again, blades grinding. He tried to lean into my fury. I leaned into my memory, birthday candles, cave explorations, her laugh when she won at chess. And in that memory, my strength doubled, because I wasn't fighting to kill. I was fighting to take her home. I twisted, ducked his swing, and drove my sword up into his chest under the molten ribs. It sank deeper than before. His body shuddered. "Impossible," he gasped. "You're not wrathful enough to hurt me." "I'm not fighting with wrath," I said. "I'm fighting with love." I twisted the blade, his body convulsed, the fire in his eyes guttered. And then impossibly the guardian of wrath fell to his knees. His sword clattered from his hands. His molten skin cooled, gray and brittle. He collapsed onto the throne of weapons. One by one, the blades and clubs and batons that made up the throne slid free, clattering across the floor. From his cooling hand dropped the prize, a black iron key glowing faintly like it remembered being fire. I bent, picked it up, and for the first time since this descent began, the tower felt less hostile, not welcoming, but waiting. I ran down the spiral to the 7th level, key burning in my fist. Sophie was at the bars, eyes flickering between black and brown, clinging to herself with everything she had left. I shoved the key into the absence that pretended to be a lock. It turned, the bars screamed, and then they broke like glass. Sophie stumbled forward into my arms. She was ice cold, trembling, but she was there. "How did you beat him?" she whispered against my chest. "I didn't fight his fight," I said. "He wanted wrath, I gave him love." Her eyes flicked up at me, still wet, still dark around the edges. "Then you're stronger than he was." Behind us, the tower shook once, as if angry to have lost. Dust rained from the ceiling. From somewhere deep below, a new sound rose, the clamor of armies realizing their guardian had fallen. We didn't have long. "Come on," I said, dragging her toward the stair. "We're not done yet." We ran as the tower of wrath roared awake. You don't just escape hell. Hell decides if it lets you go. The moment Sophie stepped out of the cell, the tower of wrath shuddered. Screams rattled through the spiral stair, not from individual throats but from the stone itself. The walls vibrated like a giant drumhead, carrying fury we hadn't earned but were about to inherit. Sophie stumbled, clutching her temple. "It knows," she whispered. "The tower knows you killed him." Dust sifted from the ceiling. Cells banged open, not fully, but enough for gray hands to reach, to claw, to remind us what anger looks like when it's caged too long. "Run," I told her, and we did. Every step down the spiral was war. Souls leaned out, shrieking, begging, threatening, promising. A murderer with one eye black and one still human crooned, "Leave her, save yourself, we'll take her kindly." A tyrant roared in Latin so loud it cracked stone. A boy Sophie's age wept, begging for her hand, calling her by name though she'd never met him. The tower was trying every trick at once, temptation, pity, threat. But Sophie kept her eyes forward, hand locked around my wrist, breathing like a soldier. At the base level, the 2 armored gatekeepers were gone. Their posts stood empty. That was somehow worse. When we burst into the courtyard, the reenactment had broken. Romans and Goths were no longer fighting each other. They had turned as one, their eternal feud interrupted by a greater insult, us. Hundreds of eyes, black and pitiless, fixed on the living who dared carry a soul out. "They'll never let us pass," Sophie gasped. "We don't need them to let us." The map showed a side exit, a narrow passage carved for servants centuries ago. But to reach it, we had to cross 30 yards of open stone through an army that had forgotten how to die properly. I gripped Sophie's hand tighter. On three, we run. Don't stop, don't look back. We ran on one. Arrows hissed past, spears scraped stone. An axe clanged inches from Sophie's shoulder. My legs burned, my lungs screamed, but adrenaline didn't care. Somehow, impossibly, we cleared the courtyard and found the narrow stair leading out. Behind us, the city howled. Hell doesn't like to lose. The streets we'd used coming in were no longer there. Pathways bent, alleys shifted, buildings twisted to block us. The city was alive now, awake, reshaping itself like a Rubik's Cube built by rage. Eva's coin in my pocket grew hot. When I pulled it out, the scratched word home burned like it was lit from inside. I dropped it on the cobbles. It hit and rang clear, sharp, echoing. Sound, the anchor still worked. This way, Sophie shouted, dragging me left, following the echo. For a moment I saw the little girl who used to lead me through caves, counting steps and pretending she was braver than me. Now she was. We burst back into the plaza by the river. The ferryman was waiting. His boat nudged the pier, bone hull steady on the slow red current. His robe ate the light, his eyes, or the absence where they should be, locked on Sophie. "The living girl owes nothing," he said, voice like iron grinding. "She already paid." I swallowed. "Then what's the price for both of us to leave?" 10 years, he said, for her resurrection, 4 more for your crossing debt, 14 in total. I staggered. I'd already paid 4, add 14, and I'd lose nearly 2 decades in a single night. Sophie shook her head violently. "No, don't you dare." The ferryman tilted his head. "Or leave her, you return alone, 4 years only." "Not happening." My voice broke, but it was steady. Sophie grabbed my shirt, eyes blazing. "Dad, stop, you'll kill yourself. Better me old than you dead." The ferryman's boat rocked slightly as if amused. "Decide, the city wakes. Delay and it chooses for you." I pulled Sophie close. "Listen to me. You're worth every second I have left, every one." Her eyes filled. "Mom wouldn't want this. Mom would want you alive." The ferryman extended his hand, long and black as obsidian. 10 years, he repeated. I reached out, my hand trembled, but I didn't stop. I pressed my palm into his. The cold ripped through me like dry ice in my veins. I felt time draining, years, youth, health sucked out, measured, stolen. My back bent, my joints flared. My vision dimmed and cleared again in a world suddenly sharper, crueler. 14 years gone in seconds. The ferryman released me. "The debt is satisfied. Step aboard." Sophie helped me onto the bone boat, her arms strong under mine, her face streaked with tears and fury. As the ferryman pulled us across the blood river, shapes stirred beneath the surface, vast and wrong, brushing the hull, hungering for the living cargo. On the far shore, I could already see lights. Rome's Rome, our Rome. But between us and the stair that would lead back to the church basement, shadows were gathering. Not souls, not demons, something else. Figures in robes, hoods low, standing perfectly still at the landing. Sophie gripped my arm. "Dad, those aren't from down here. Those are Vatican." The ferryman's grin split the dark. "You paid me to cross the river," he said softly, "not to survive what waits on the shore. Hell doesn't need to drag you back when someone on the surface is waiting to push you in again." The bone boat scraped stone. The ferryman angled his pole, robes falling around him like shadows pretending to be fabric. Sophie gripped my arm tight, pulling me onto the pier. My joints screamed under the weight of 14 stolen years. For one breath, I thought we'd made it. The compass at my neck was gone, but the path upward still felt open. The stairs rose before us, 33 steps carved into Roman stone, promising Rome's night air at the top. But the shore wasn't empty. Figures waited, not demons, not souls, men, 6 of them in clerical robes, hoods low. Lanterns hung from staffs, glowing with too clean light, the kind that belonged to halogen bulbs, not fire. Each carried a weapon that tried to hide itself as a walking stick. The ferryman didn't leave. He leaned against his pole, watching. "Your debt is paid," he rasped, "but I never promised the way forward would be clear." One of the robed men stepped forward, pulling back his hood. His face was sharp, early 50s maybe, with the look of someone who hadn't slept in years. "Dr. Hale," he said, pronouncing it like a record keeper who already has my file. "And Sophia." His eyes lingered on her. "We were told you'd come back. You weren't meant to." Sophie's grip on my arm tightened. "They killed me," she whispered, "or made sure I couldn't come back." "Your death was unfortunate," the man said without shame, "but necessary. The church cannot afford breaches." He gestured to the others. "Take them." The first priest moved fast, staff snapping out like a spear. I shoved Sophie behind me and caught the blow on my forearm. Pain lanced white-hot, but adrenaline turned pain into movement. I swung my stolen hell sword. Steel met wood, and sparks flew like the staff was metal. Sophie grabbed a lantern off its hook and smashed it into one attacker's hood. White fire spilled, burning without heat, clinging like paint. The man screamed as his robe turned transparent, showing glimpses of something wrong beneath the skin, something stretched, not quite human. "They're not all priests," she gasped. "No, they were agents, modified, shaped, half-souls who'd gone down too often and come back carrying more hell than flesh. We fought through them step by step, toward the stair. I cut one across the chest, no blood, just black smoke." Sophie swung the lantern like a mace, driving another back. At the base of the stair, the leader raised his hand. The whole pier shuddered. A circle of symbols flared under our feet, carved into the stone. They weren't demonic. They were ecclesiastical sigils, the kind meant to bind devils in Renaissance exorcisms. "Stop struggling," he said. "The Vatican has been doing this for centuries. You two just upset the balance." The sigils began to glow hotter. The air thickened, pressing down on us. Sophie stumbled. My sword felt heavy, sluggish, like it didn't want to rise. The leader raised his other hand. "Return what was taken. The girl belongs to Wrath. Her release endangers the seal." "No," Sophie said. Her voice was steady now, clear, stronger than I'd heard since I found her. "I don't belong to you. I don't belong to hell. And I sure as hell don't belong to the Vatican." She grabbed the coin Eva had given me, the anchor I'd nearly left behind, and slammed it onto the sigil at our feet. The sound rang out like a cathedral bell struck at midnight. The glowing lines flickered, cracked, and then went dark. The leader hissed. "Who gave you that?" "A friend," Sophie snapped. "Someone who thinks you're a coward." The name wasn't spoken, but I saw it in his eyes. He knew Eva. The priest surged forward again. I swung with everything left in me. Not technique, not rage, just raw desperation. Sophie and I fought shoulder to shoulder, backing toward the stair. Step by step we climbed 10 stairs, 15, 20. Each one felt like lifting a coffin on my back. The agents clawed up after us, hissing, their blackened hands grasping at our ankles. At the top, the final door, an iron slab with a carved cross, waited. Sophie shoved it with both hands. It didn't move. "Push!" I shouted, throwing my weight against it. My aged body screamed, my bones protesting, but the door groaned open an inch, then 2. Cool Roman night air spilled through. The leader shouted something in Latin, a command, and the agents lunged. Sophie squeezed through the gap first. I followed, forcing my shoulders past the iron as claws raked my back. For 1 second I thought we'd made it. Then a hand caught my wrist. Not Sophie's, not human, the ferryman's. His face rose in the crack of the doorway, eyes empty but amused. "Did you think debt ends so quickly, mortal?" he whispered. The door slammed shut behind us, but his grip remained. I was back in Rome, under a church, under scaffolding, the night cool and real. But half my body was still claimed by something that had followed me through. Sometimes survival means choosing who gets to own your debt. The iron door to St. Joseph of the Carpenters was open just enough for Sophie to squeeze through. Rome's night air rushed in, cool and damp, but it wasn't freedom, because the ferryman's hand still had me. His fingers were bone wrapped in shadow, cold, seeping straight into my marrow. My body was half through the threshold, chest and head in Rome, legs and wrists still claimed by hell. Sophie pulled with both arms, screaming my name. The ferryman smiled without lips. Mortals never learn. A river takes more than years, it takes pieces, and I decide which ones. His grip tightened, my bones creaked. "Let him go," Sophie cried. She kicked at the door, trying to crush his hand in the hinge, but the iron passed through him like smoke. I felt my strength buckling. Already aged, already hollowed out by his bargain, I didn't have much left. Then Sophie did something reckless. She pressed both hands to mine, closing the ferryman's hand between our palms. For a moment, it wasn't just me he was holding. It was her too, her eyes locked on mine. "If you're going down, I'm going with you," the ferryman hissed, startled. For the first time, I saw hesitation ripple in the dark of his hood. He hadn't expected resistance from both. "2 souls, 1 price," he whispered. "I could drag you both. That would balance the book nicely." Before he could decide, a voice cut through the night. "Enough." A beam of white light lanced across the stairwell, not lantern light, something sharper, more deliberate. The ferryman recoiled, his grip faltering just long enough for Sophie to yank me free. We collapsed onto the cold stone floor of the church basement. My wrist was bruised black, skin frostbitten where his hand had touched. The door slammed shut with a thunder that shook dust from the rafters. Standing above us was a man in priest's robes, a briefcase in one hand, a device in the other that still glowed faintly. Father Rodriguez. His face was tired, lined with more years than mine, but his eyes were clear, and they were watching us like specimens, not survivors. "I warned them," he said quietly. "If you went down, you'd come back with company. Looks like I was right." Sophie scrambled to her feet, fury blazing. You knew I was being followed. You let Father Tiretti come after me." Rodriguez didn't flinch. "His orders were to contain you, not kill you. But hell has its own influence. Tiretti underestimated it, as did you. Now we're all paying the price." I pulled myself upright, every joint aching. "Why save us then, if we're such a problem?" Rodriguez set the briefcase down. "Because you did something unprecedented. You brought her back, alive, not corrupted beyond repair. That makes you valuable." Sophie spat. "Valuable? You murdered me." "We protected the church," Rodriguez corrected. "And now, perhaps, we protect more than that." He opened the briefcase, laying out photographs, images of the well, of the blood river, even blurred surveillance shots of the Tower of Wrath. Vatican cameras, Vatican watchers. They had been monitoring every descent for decades. "The entrances are unstable," Rodriguez said. "More breaches every year, more people stumbling through without meaning to. You've proven you can survive down there and come back. We need you." "Need us for what?" I asked, though I already knew. To go back, Rodriguez said simply. Again and again, to bring back those we can, to contain those we can't. Sophie crossed her arms, and if we say no, Rodriguez didn't smile, then other factions will say you know too much, you'll be silenced, permanently. I can't protect you unless you agree to work with me. The air in the basement felt suddenly colder, though the ferryman was gone. Different chill, bureaucratic, calculated Vatican. My daughter had died once because of them. I wasn't about to let her die again. But the look in Sophie's eyes told me she was already thinking what I was. Hell wasn't the only prison. Rodriguez closed the briefcase with a snap. You have 72 hours, then you decide, with us or against us. He turned and walked up the church stairs, lantern light fading behind him. Sophie knelt next to me, taking my frost-bitten wrist in her hands. Her voice was low, furious. Dad, we didn't escape. We just traded one jailer for another. And for the first time, I realized she was right. The real war wasn't just down there. It was up here. Saving Sophie was personal. The Vatican's test was anything but. We spent 3 nights in a borrowed apartment in Trastevere, curtains always drawn, both of us waiting for Vatican retaliation. None came. On the 4th morning, an unmarked car waited outside. The driver didn't speak. Just handed me a note, be ready, today. Sophie read it over my shoulder. Guess 72 hours are up. We didn't run. Where would we go? The Vatican isn't a government. It's a shadow older than governments. You don't hide from that. They drove us past the city walls into the countryside. Vineyards blurred by, hills, olive trees, ruins, until finally we pulled through a gate that wasn't on any map. Inside, a compound of stone and steel, no signage, just high walls, guards in plain clothes, cameras everywhere. Rodriguez met us at the entrance. Welcome, he said. His tone wasn't warm. It wasn't hostile either. It was clinical, like a surgeon greeting patients before an experimental procedure. He led us inside, through halls lined with relics sealed in glass cases, fragments of armor, tattered manuscripts, weapons tagged with hazard warnings. Sophie lingered at one case, a rusted sword, its hilt fused with bone. Rodriguez noticed. Every piece you see here was retrieved from hell by one of ours. Most of them didn't come back. In a stark conference room, Rodriguez laid out the task. Photos on the table, satellite images, a police report. A graduate student from Florence disappeared 2 weeks ago, he said. Her notes indicate she'd been researching medieval pilgrimage routes. We believe she found references to one of the entrances, beneath San Lorenzo. Sophie tensed. You think she went down? Rodriguez nodded. And hasn't returned. If she's alive, she's trapped. If she's corrupted, she must be contained. Either way, this is your test. I frowned. You're sending us straight back down after what we just survived. You already proved you can enter and return, Rodriguez said. Now prove it wasn't luck. They issued gear. Vatican standard packs, ropes, flares, first aid, radios that looked ordinary but hummed faintly with something more than electricity. One item caught my eye, a compass. Not Sophie's medieval relic, but a new design, steel casing, etched with scripture around the dial. It always points up, Rodriguez said. Toward the surface, treat it as gospel. If it spins, you're already lost. Sophie accepted hers reluctantly. Feels like training wheels. Feels like survival, Rodriguez corrected. The entrance lay beneath the crypt of San Lorenzo, behind a wall that looked centuries old. Vatican workmen had already broken through. The stairwell yawned before us, stone steps, damp air, the smell of rust and earth. I glanced at Sophie. She was pale but steady. Ready? Not even a little, she said. Let's go. We descended. According to Sophie's translated map fragments, this entrance bypassed the wrathful and dropped directly into the circle of greed. The air grew hot, stifling, thick with dust like powdered gold. The walls glittered faintly, embedded with flecks of ore. Our boots crunched on coins, so many they formed dunes, and voices whispered, not words, not yet, just promises. Sophie shivered. This place doesn't want to hurt us, it wants to buy us. We moved carefully. The compass needles jittered but held true. Then, in the shimmer ahead, we saw her. A girl, early 20s, hair matted, face streaked with sweat. She stumbled between pillars made of stacked coins, eyes wide and glassy. "Help me," she croaked. "I just need one more step. The treasure's almost mine." When we reached her, she recoiled like we were thieves. "No, you'll take it from me. I'm so close," he promised. I looked around. The pillars weren't just coins. They were mirrors too, surfaces polished so smooth they reflected not just us but versions of us. I saw myself younger, stronger, unscarred. Sophie saw herself older, confident, respected. The girl must have been seeing endless versions of wealth, success, everything she craved. It wasn't a maze of stone, it was a maze of desire. "We have to break it," Sophie whispered. "How?" She gritted her teeth. "By giving her something real." We cornered the girl gently, Sophie speaking soft, steady. "Look at me," she said. "What you want isn't here, it's a trick. You've been walking in circles." The girl shook her head violently. "No, I saw it, jewels, money, everything, just a little further." Sophie reached out, gripping her shoulders. "What do you really want? Forget gold, forget treasure. If you could go anywhere right now, be anywhere, where would it be?" The girl's eyes fluttered. For a second, clarity pierced through. "Home. I want to go home." The mirrors around us cracked. Glass rained down in shards. The dunes of coins collapsed into dust. The girl collapsed into my arms, sobbing, whispering apologies. Sophie held the compass steady. The needle pointed upward again, strong. We retraced our steps. The stairwell opened above, blessedly close. As we climbed, Sophie glanced back one last time. "Dad, you realize we didn't just save her, we passed." I didn't answer. I wasn't sure we had. When we emerged into the crypt, Rodriguez was waiting. He looked at the girl, alive, shaken but breathing, and then at us. "Well," he said, "it seems we've found our first field agents." But his smile didn't reach his eyes. Behind him, 2 more priests closed the crypt door, not to keep the world out, to keep us in. Saving a lost soul was one thing. The Vatican's next test wasn't about mercy, it was about survival. 2 nights later, Rodriguez summoned us. No preamble, no briefing room, just his quiet voice in a candlelit chapel deep inside the compound. "There's activity at another entrance," he said. "Beneath a monastery in Umbria, the seals are straining. Something is trying to push through." I frowned. Another lost student, another pilgrim. Rodriguez's expression was unreadable. "Not this time. This isn't a retrieval, it's containment." Sophie stiffened. Containment of what? His pause said everything. A demon. The monastery was remote, perched on a cliffside like it had been waiting for centuries to collapse. Storm clouds rolled in as we arrived. The air tasted metallic. We were escorted down through crumbling catacombs. Monks had abandoned the place weeks ago. Symbols scrawled in chalk covered the walls. Desperate protection. At the lowest chamber, a stair wound down into blackness. Rodriguez handed me a relic, a silver crucifix wired with copper coils. "It's not faith that powers it," he said. "It's resonance. Frequency tuned to destabilize what doesn't belong here. Don't drop it." Sophie muttered, "Great, science cosplay exorcism." The stair led into caverns that pulsed like lungs. The walls weren't just stone, they were bulging, veined, alive. Every step echoed with something like a heartbeat. The compass quivered, its needle twitching in panic. We heard it before we saw it, a low growl like steel dragged across bone. Then whispers layered over it, dozens of voices speaking different languages at once, all pleading. Sophie gripped my arm. "Dad, it's inside the walls." And it was. The stone itself bulged outward, forming faces, mouths open, eyes black pressing from within, souls trapped in the rock fused together, and behind them moving something larger. It burst free without warning, not fire and horns, worse. A shape that shifted, never consistent. For 1 second it was a wolf made of shadows, then a centurion in armor of bone, then a woman whose jaw unhinged too wide. Each form snapped and broke into the next like bad film splices. Its eyes stayed the same in every shape, pits of red-black flame staring straight through me. The cavern shook when it spoke. I remember her. It meant Sophie. The crucifix in my hand vibrated, glowing faintly. I thrust it forward. The demon shrieked, staggering back, forms flickering faster, but it wasn't enough. Every step it took forward, the ground cracked, the air grew heavy. My chest squeezed like a hand was around my lungs. Sophie pulled a flare, lit it, hurled it. The light clung to the demon's shadow like tar, burning white. It howled, the sound 1,000 voices in agony. For a heartbeat, I thought we had it. Then it laughed. Not cruel, not mocking, joyful. "You brought toys," it said. "Do you want to know why the Vatican keeps sending you down? Because they don't care if you win, they care if you last." Sophie raised her compass, holding it like a weapon. "You don't own me," she shouted. "Not wrath, not you, not anyone." The demon froze, its form slowed, stabilizing. For a moment it looked almost human, just a man, burned and broken, eyes hollow. It hissed. "But you killed for us. You carry wrath in your blood. You belong already." Her jaw clenched. She almost faltered. I saw it. That sliver of guilt hell had planted in her. I stepped in front of her, crucifix raised higher. "No, she belongs to me, to her family, not to you." The relic pulsed, brighter this time, like it had been waiting for the right words. The demon shrieked, its form collapsing in on itself, sucked back into the walls. The cavern shuddered, dust rained. For now it was gone. We stumbled back up the stairwell, lungs burning, ears ringing. Rodriguez was waiting in the catacomb. "You survived," he said, not praise, not relief, just an observation. I shoved the crucifix into his chest. "What the hell was that?" "A test," he said calmly. "We needed to see how you handled more than whispers and lost souls." Sophie's voice cracked with fury. "You knew it was there, you sent us in as bait." Rodriguez didn't deny it. "You're valuable, but only if you can endure. Now we know." As he turned to leave, Sophie hissed in my ear, "Dad, we can't keep doing this. They're not saving people, they're studying us." I wanted to argue, but in the silence of that monastery I realized she was right. And then I noticed something else. My compass, still in my pocket, was spinning, not pointing up, not pointing anywhere, which meant the demon wasn't gone. It was following us. Hell doesn't need chains to hold you. Sometimes it leaves fingerprints instead. The van hummed quietly on the road to Rome. Rain tapped the roof in nervous rhythms. Sophie was slumped against the window, half asleep, face pale, breath shallow. I held the compass in my palm. It should have been steady now, needle pointing up. Instead, it spun in slow, lazy circles, like it couldn't decide where the surface was. That meant one of two things. Either hell hadn't let go, or hell was still with us. I glanced at Sophie. In the flicker of passing headlights, her reflection in the glass didn't match her movements. Her head leaned right, her reflection leaned left. My chest tightened. Rodriguez was waiting when we returned as if he hadn't moved since we'd left. He didn't ask how we were, just looked at Sophie for too long before turning to me. Containment was acceptable, he said, though your instruments suggest residual contamination. I hid the compass in my pocket. What contamination? Rodriguez didn't answer me. He looked only at Sophie. Did you hear it? Sophie blinked, still groggy. Hear what? The name it called you by. She stiffened. I'd heard it too. I remember her. Rodriguez nodded, almost like he'd expected it. Then the mark is real. They separated us. Guards led Sophie one way, me another. I shouted, fought, but Rodriguez raised a hand. She is not a prisoner, he said smoothly. She's an observation. They put me in a chamber lined with relics, crosses, bones in cases, scrolls sealed in glass, cold, clinical faith. I could hear her through the wall, faint, arguing in a voice too strong for how weak she looked. No, I don't need tests. I'm not infected. I'm not. Then a crash. A chair overturned. Silence. I slammed my fists against the wall until they dragged me out. When they finally returned her, Sophie looked fine. Too fine. Her skin flushed, her step steady, stronger than before. She smiled at me, but her eyes had flecks of red that hadn't been there. I'm okay, Dad, she said, voice even. Better, actually. They said I passed. Rodriguez stood behind her, unreadable. The mark doesn't always destroy. Sometimes it adapts. She resisted wrath before. Perhaps she can resist this too. I wanted to believe him, but the compass in my pocket still spun. Later that night, I found Rodriguez alone in the chapel, staring at a crucifix that looked older than the building. You knew this would happen, I said. He didn't deny it. We suspected. Hell marks those it touches deeply. Most succumb. A few evolve. We needed to know which category your daughter fell into. You used her. He finally looked at me. His eyes were tired but cold. Dr. Hale, everyone is being used, including me, including you. The only question is whether the use achieves something greater. I wanted to hit him, but behind my anger was a truth I couldn't shake. Sophie really did look stronger, more awake, more dangerous. That night in our quarters, I found her awake, sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at her hands. I can feel it, Dad, she whispered, like something's under my skin, not taking me, not yet, but it's there, watching. Her hands shook, she clenched them into fists. When it spoke, part of me wanted to listen. Part of me wanted to go back. I knelt, took her hands. They were too warm. We'll fight it together. She nodded, then added softly, but what if Rodriguez is right? What if I can resist? What if I can use it? I wanted to argue, but before I could, the alarm blared. Sirens wailed through the compound. Vatican guards shouted in Italian. A young priest burst into our room, eyes wide. Another breach. Not in hell, here on the surface. The mark on Sophie's skin flared faint red. She winced, clutching her chest. Dad, she whispered, eyes wide with fear and hunger. It's calling me. And in the distance, even through stone walls, I swore I heard the same voice from the cavern. I remember her. The Vatican built walls to keep hell out. That night the walls became useless. The alarm cut through stone like a blade. Red lights strobed in the corridors, shadows lurching with every pulse. Guards ran past our door, radios crackling with frantic Italian. Sophie clutched her chest, the faint red mark glowing through her shirt like fire under skin. Her breath came in short, sharp gasps. Dad, it's here, she whispered. Not down there, here. And then, as if answering her, the compound shook. A boom reverberated through the walls. Dust sifted from the ceiling. This wasn't just a drill. I grabbed the Vatican issue compass. The needle didn't spin this time, it snapped hard toward Sophie, vibrating like it wanted to point into her. She saw it and flinched. "Don't you dare," she said, voice trembling but fierce. "I'm not the breach." We shoved into the hallway. Priests and guards shoved past us, carrying relic weapons, chanting half prayers, half protocols. One stopped when he saw Sophie. His eyes widened at the glow beneath her skin. "She's marked," he shouted. "Contain her." I swung before I thought. My fist caught his jaw, dropping him. Sophie pulled me into a stairwell before Moore could react. From the upper levels, a scream ripped through the air, not human, not entirely. The kind of sound that bends ceilings, cracks glass. We crept to a balcony overlooking the relic vault. Something was inside. A shadow mass, humanoid but shifting, moving like it wasn't bound to one shape. It slammed against walls, each impact leaving scorched impressions that bled. Relics glowed in their cases, some shattering. One display burst open, a medieval helmet clattering to the floor. The shadow swallowed it whole. The demon from Umbria, it hadn't been destroyed, it had followed. The mark on Sophie's chest burned brighter. She staggered, grabbing the railing. "It's calling me," she gasped. "It thinks I belong to it." Her reflection in the vault glass flickered black-eyed, lips curling in a smile she didn't make. I shook her. "Fight it, Soph. It doesn't own you." Tears welled in her eyes. "What if I don't want to fight it? What if part of me wants to answer?" Below, the demon howled and Sophie screamed in sync. The connection was real and getting stronger. Rodriguez appeared beside us, calm in the chaos, holding a relic staff etched with Latin runes. Guards formed a shaky perimeter around the vault. "It's bound to her," he said flatly. "That's why it came. The breach isn't the demon, it's your daughter." Sophie recoiled as if slapped. "No," Rodriguez leveled the staff at her. "We can sever the connection, but it will hurt and it may kill her." I stepped between them. "You try and I'll kill you first." Rodriguez's eyes narrowed. "Then decide quickly. If she loses control, we lose the compound." The floor shook again, screams echoed, time was running out. Guards advanced, hesitant but ready. Sophie's glow flared like a heartbeat, brighter with every demon's roar below. "Dad," she said softly, almost calm. "What if he's right? What if I can't fight it?" I shook my head. "You can, we'll find another way." She grabbed my wrist, her grip iron strong. "Then we run before they make the choice for us." We bolted. Through side corridors, past overturned tables, past terrified priests whispering prayers. Twice, guards spotted us, but Sophie's glow made them hesitate, afraid to touch her. At the outer wall, explosions shook stone. Dust rained like ash. Spotlights swept the compound yard. A gate stood ajar. Trucks idled, abandoned. The breach had pulled every defense inward. Sophie yanked me toward freedom. "Now!" Behind us, Rodriguez's voice echoed through the courtyard, calm, commanding. "Run if you must, but understand this, hell doesn't let go. The mark will consume her. And when it does, you'll beg us to take her back." We stumbled through the gate into the storm-lashed night. Rome lay somewhere beyond the hills. Sophie's mark pulsed one last time, so bright it lit the rain red. Her eyes met mine, scared, fierce, uncertain. "Dad," she whispered, "what if he's right?" The wind carried another sound over the compound walls, the demon's voice echoing from inside and outside at once. I remember her. Escaping hell was one thing. Escaping the church was harder. We ran until our lungs burned. The compound lights faded behind us, thunder rolling over the hills. Every step splashed mud, every breath tasted like iron. Sophie's glow dimmed under her jacket, but I could feel heat radiating off her skin. She clutched her side, teeth clenched. "They'll come after us," she said. "Not demons, Vatican." I nodded, though the truth was worse. They didn't need to chase. They already knew where every road led. We found shelter in a crumbling apartment block near Termini Station, half abandoned, half squatted in. Broken shutters, graffiti, the smell of mildew. I barred the door with a rusted pipe. Sophie collapsed onto a mattress older than both of us combined. For a few hours, silence. Just the rain, just our breathing, until the mark began to burn again. She woke gasping, nails digging into her arms. Red lines crawled up her neck like veins of fire. "Dad," she whispered. "It's inside me, whispering, not words, hunger." Her reflection in the cracked mirror across the room moved half a second too late. When she saw it, she punched the glass with her bare fist. Shards scattered, her hand bled, but the wound closed before my eyes, skin knitting smooth. "That's not me," she sobbed. "That's not me, Dad." I held her shoulders, forcing her to look at me. "Then fight it. Stay you, stay mine." For a moment her eyes cleared, but only for a moment. A TV in the corner flickered alive on its own, though the building hadn't had power for years. Snow, static, then a Vatican crest. Rodriguez's voice filled the room, calm, chilling. "Dr. Hale, Sophia, we will find you. The mark will not be contained outside our walls. Come back voluntarily, and perhaps redemption is still possible. Run, and you doom not only yourselves, but everyone you pass." Sophie hurled a shoe at the screen. It cracked, sparked, died. She turned to me, eyes blazing. "We're not going back." That night, as the rain eased, someone knocked at the door 3 times, slow, deliberate. I raised the hell sword ready. Sophie gripped my arm. A voice whispered through the door, "If you want to live, open. If you want to die, stay quiet." Against every instinct, I opened. She was there, the woman from Sophie's notes. The name Rodriguez had flinched at. Eva, older than Sophie, younger than me. Leather jacket, eyes like someone who had seen hell too many times and kept souvenirs. She carried no lantern, no relic, only a battered map case strapped across her chest. "You've been busy," she said dryly, stepping inside. "Breaking out of the Vatican isn't easy, but then again they never were good at keeping their pets leashed. Over stale bread and bottled water, Eva told us the truth. There are factions," she said. "Rodriguez is a pragmatist. He wants to use the maps, use people like you to manage hell. But there are others darker. They don't want to manage, they want to weaponize. Imagine opening the gates not to rescue souls, but to unleash them, armies of the damned." Sophie paled, and the mark. Eva's eyes softened just enough to be human. "It's not infection, it's a tether, a beacon. Which means as long as you carry it, something will always be looking for you." She leaned closer, lowering her voice. "But it also means you can find them. Every demon, every breach, every door. You don't just carry the mark, Sophie, you are the map now." Eva unrolled parchment from her case. Ancient vellum, ink faded but precise. Lines that bent wrong, circles that spiraled too deep. "The Vatican keeps their maps locked. I keep mine alive." She traced 7 points, each glowing faintly as her finger passed. 7 gates, all weakening. One already tied to you. She looked at me, then Sophie. "You have a choice. Go back to Rodriguez and let him use you, or come with me and fight to close them, permanently." Sophie's mark flared bright enough to cast shadows. She winced but didn't look away. "Dad, if she's right, this is bigger than us. Maybe we're supposed to do this." I wanted to believe, but belief doesn't weigh against survival. Before I could answer, the windows shattered. Glass rained inward. Black-clad figures dropped from the roof, Vatican hunters, rifles fitted with relic bayonets glowing cold. Eva swore. Sophie's mark pulsed like a beacon. The hunters aimed at her, not me. Rodriguez's voice came again, this time through their radios. Bring me the girl, kill the father if you must. Sophie grabbed my hand, eyes wide, the glow burning through her jacket. Dad, choose. It wasn't hell chasing us anymore. It was Rome itself. Glass rained down. Vatican hunters poured into the squat like shadows in uniform, masks, rifles tipped with glowing bayonets, rosaries wound around their wrists like chains. They didn't fire. They didn't need to. Their weapons hummed with cold light that burned the eyes, designed for one purpose, not to kill but to capture. Sophie staggered as the mark flared red-hot. Her jacket smoked. "Dad," she gasped, "I can't hold it back much longer." Eva shoved a knife into my hand, silver, etched with runes. "Don't think, move." We crashed through a fire door into the rain-slick alley. Hunters followed, their boots pounding in rhythm. Floodlights swept rooftops. A drone buzzed overhead, glowing cross suspended beneath it. Rome was alive, tourists still drinking, students laughing under umbrellas, vendors closing stalls. None of them knew the Vatican had declared war just a block away. Eva barked directions. Metro tunnels now. Sophie stumbled, clutching her chest. Her reflection in shop windows no longer matched her stride. In glass she lagged, black-eyed, lips whispering soundless words. We dove into a shuttered metro entrance. Graffiti covered the walls, saints with mouths crossed out, angels painted upside down. Hunters followed, their chants echoing off tile. "Canteen Yos, Canteen Yos." The mark pulsed brighter in the underground. Sophie screamed as sparks of red lightning arced off her skin, searing walls, shattering lights. Eva grabbed my arm. "She's not controlling it, it's controlling her. If they corner her like this, she'll go off like a bomb." We hit the platform. Empty, silent except for dripping water. Tracks stretched into blackness. Hunters fanned in from both tunnels, rifles leveled. Their leader stepped forward, mask pulled back to reveal a scarred face. His eyes weren't human, they were entirely white. "Hand over the girl," he intoned. "Her debt belongs to hell, her body belongs to the church." Sophie's laugh chilled me, low, sharp, not hers. "I don't belong to either." Her hands glowed, the tiled walls cracked as power surged outward. The mark exploded, red veins of light spidered across the station. The hunters fired bolts of silver energy, but every shot twisted midair, swallowed into Sophie's glow. She raised one hand, and 3 hunters slammed against the wall as if invisible hands crushed them. Their bones cracked audibly. Her eyes flicked black. "Dad, I can't stop it." I stepped forward, relic knife still in hand. "Then let me." She looked at me in horror, not of me hurting her, but of me touching her at all. Eva fired her gun into the ceiling, concrete dust raining. "Forget them, move." She yanked Sophie toward the tracks just as an incoming train roared through the tunnel. We leapt onto the roof as it barreled past, hunters' shouts swallowed by thunder. For minutes, nothing but steel screech and tunnel wind. Sophie collapsed against me, trembling, the glow dimming. Eva crouched, shouting over the roar. "See now, she is the map, that power is the tether. Vatican will never stop, hell will never stop. The only chance is to end the gates, seal them." Sophie's head lifted weakly, her voice cracked. "Then show us how." The train screamed out into open air and overpass above the Tiber. Moonlight glinted on water below. As we clung to the roof, I saw them, shadows in the river moving against the current. Hands stretching up from black water, dozens, maybe hundreds, watching. Sophie's mark burned hotter. She whispered, half delirious, "They're waiting for me." And I realized the river wasn't water at all. It was bleeding red. Rome itself was cracking open. We thought survival was the goal. Turns out survival was the distraction. The train roared over the Tiber and vanished into a tunnel. We leapt from the roof onto a service platform, lungs burning, knees shaking. Below, the river churned crimson. Hands still reached up from the water, but they weren't grabbing, they were pointing. Sophie leaned over the railing, Mark glowing faintly. They're not attacking, they're guiding. Eva cursed under her breath. Yeah, toward the Vatican, toward the gates. I pulled her back. Then they want her to go deeper, to finish what wrath started. Sophie looked at me with something that scared me more than the mark, certainty, or they want me to close it. Eva led us to a forgotten crypt beneath a shuttered church, dust, cobwebs, a single candle for light. She unrolled her battered map. It shimmered faintly as if alive, lines twisting when you looked too long. This is older than the Vatican's, Eva said, drawn before they took control. The monks who made it called it the final seal. 7 gates, 7 guardians. If all are sealed simultaneously, the paths collapse. Sophie frowned. Sealed how? Eva's eyes lingered on the mark. With blood, the map needs a living tether, someone already marked. My stomach dropped. No, absolutely not. Sophie didn't look away. Dad, maybe that's why I survived, why I was marked to finish it. We argued. My voice echoed off stone louder than I meant. You think Rodriguez will just let you. He'll kill you before you touch their maps, and hell's already inside you. Every time you use that thing, you lose more of yourself. Sophie's hands shook. Then what's the alternative? Run forever. Watch Rome crack open like the Tiber tonight. Watch more people vanish like that student in Greed. Eva cut in sharp. He's not wrong. Every marked soul I've seen burned out. You might be different, or you might die screaming. The question isn't if, it's when. Silence. Then Sophie whispered, if dying means shutting the gates, maybe that's worth it. The candle flickered. Then the crypt walls glowed with projected light, Vatican tech, relics wired into surveillance. Rodriguez's voice filled the chamber. You can't hide forever. The girl is a weapon whether you wield her or not. Come back and we'll find a way to harness the mark safely. Resist, and you'll doom her and everyone she touches. His image stared down at us like a saint painted in fire. Calm, patient, deadly. Eva spat on the floor. Harness, that's their word for enslave. Sophie looked at me. Dad, if we don't close the gates, they will, and they'll use me to do it their way. Eva pointed at the map. First seal is beneath Naples, old catacombs, still active. If we break it, we test if this ritual even works. She looked straight at Sophie. But once you start, you won't be able to stop. Hell will feel it. Vatican too. Both sides will come down on us. I gripped Sophie's shoulder. We don't owe the world this. We don't owe Rodriguez. We don't owe hell. Her voice was steady, almost serene. We owe Mom. We owe the people still trapped. We owe everyone who doesn't even know they are in danger. The mark flared again, brighter than before. For a heartbeat, symbols etched themselves into the crypt wall, circles within circles, glowing red. Sophie pressed her hand against the stone. The glow seeped into her skin, the symbols burning on her palm. It's already started, she whispered. I didn't choose, the mark chose. Above us, distant bells rang midnight, and beneath them I swore I heard something older, deeper, 7 tones like gates calling in sequence. Eva rolled up the map. Then we move Naples, before the Vatican does. The candle blew out, leaving only the glow of the mark. Some doors aren't meant to close, especially when they want to stay open. We traveled south by night, clinging to shadows, moving in freight cars and abandoned buses. The Vatican's net stretched wide, every checkpoint felt like a noose. Naples was louder, dirtier, more alive than Rome, but under it death had its own city, the catacombs. Eva led us to a shuttered church, locked with rust and chains. She knelt, pressed her map to the door. The chains shuddered, then snapped apart as if cut by invisible blades. She smiled thinly. First seal waits below. The stairs coiled into black. Candles sputtered in alcoves carved with skulls, thousands of hollow eyes staring. Sophie whispered, "It feels familiar, like Wrath Tower, like home." The mark glowed faintly, guiding us deeper. Air grew heavy, not with rot, but with something thicker, despair layered over centuries. At the base, the tunnel opened into a chamber too large for architecture, stone swallowing geometry. Symbols etched the walls, glowing faint red, pulsing in rhythm with Sophie's chest. Eva laid the map flat on the ground. The lines matched the chamber exactly. "This is it, the first seal." A sound rose, not footsteps, not breathing, scraping, like claws against bone. From the darkness it emerged. A figure stitched from skeletons, dozens of skulls fused into one towering body. Its spine rattled as it moved, voice echoing in overlapping tones. Another marked, another sacrifice. The guardian of Naples' seal. Eva drew her runed knives. Every gate has a guardian, they won't just let you close it. The mark on Sophie's chest flared in answer. She staggered, gripping her temples. "It knows me, it wants me." The guardian lunged. Its body cracked as ribs reshaped into blades. Eva met it with silver arcs, sparks flying. Hale swung the relic knife, striking bone, but each piece shattered only to crawl back into place. Sophie fell to her knees, screaming. The mark burned through her shirt like molten iron. "Dad," she gasped. "The seal, I can feel it. It's locked inside me. I have to let it out." I shouted over the clash of steel and bone. "If you let it out, you might not come back." Her eyes, half black, locked on mine. "Then hold me, don't let go." She pressed both hands to the stone floor. Symbols erupted, glowing red, spiraling outward. The guardian shrieked as the chamber itself fought back, bones cracking, skulls howling. Sophie's body convulsed. Red light poured from her skin, stitching into the seal. The ground shook. The chamber ceiling wept dust. Eva screamed, "She's feeding it her life." I clutched Sophie's shoulders, forcing her upright, whispering in her ear, "Stay here, stay mine, don't let it take you." For a heartbeat, the mark's glow shifted from blood red to golden white. The guardian froze, bones turned to ash, collapsing into silence. The seal burned itself shut. Sophie collapsed into my arms, eyes fluttering. The mark dimmed to a faint ember. Her skin was cold but alive. Eva knelt beside us, panting, blood streaking her arms. "It worked. 1 down, 6 to go." I shook my head. "She can't survive 6 more." Eva's voice was grim. "Then we find a way, or the gates open forever." As we staggered up the stairwell, the city bells rang dawn, but beneath them came another sound, chains snapping. I turned back. On the crypt wall, fresh cracks glowed red. Sophie stirred in my arms, whispering in a voice that wasn't hers. "They know the seal is broken, and they're coming." Closing one door was victory. Closing all 7 would be execution. We barely escaped the catacombs at dawn. The air still reeked of ash and bone. But as we reached the streets above, black vans lined the piazza. Vatican hunters fanned out, rifles glowing with relic light. At their center stood Rodriguez, robes darker than the sunrise, staff in hand. He wasn't hiding anymore. "You've done it," he said calmly. "The seal holds. Congratulations. Now hand over the girl." Eva's knife twitched. "Funny, you send us to clean your mess, then you pull the trigger." Rodriguez's eyes stayed on Sophie. "She's not a girl anymore, she's a key, and the key belongs in a lock." Rodriguez unrolled his own scroll, pristine, official, Vatican stamped. The parchment gleamed as if oiled in blood. "The final seal is not myth, it is doctrine," he said. "But what your outlaw friend failed to mention is the price. A gate once sealed must be held permanently. A living tether must remain." He looked straight at Sophie. "You closed Naples, that means Naples owns you unless another tether is offered in your place." Sophie staggered, the mark glowing faint red through her jacket. "I felt it. When it sealed, part of me stayed behind." Her voice cracked. "Dad, I don't know how long I can keep walking." Eva spat at Rodriguez's feet. "You knew this all along. You let her burn herself without warning." Rodriguez's calm never wavered. "We needed proof the seal still works. Now we have it, 6 more, and the world is safe. But not with you 3 fugitives blundering in the dark, with us, with order." He raised a hand. Hunters stepped closer, relics humming. "Come willingly, we will give her purpose. Refuse, and she will burn out and take you both with her." Sophie shook her head, tears streaming. "I'm not your weapon, I'm not hell's, I'm not anyone's." The mark flared bright crimson, bleeding light across the piazza. The hunters recoiled, shielding their eyes. For a heartbeat, I thought she'd unleash it all, burn Vatican and hell alike in one eruption. But she gasped, clutching her chest. The light dimmed, her knees buckled. I caught her before she hit the stones. She whispered in my ear, terrified, "Dad, I think he's right. I think I'm already tied. If we finish this, I don't come back." Eva moved first, knives flashing silver. 2 hunters fell before they could fire. Chaos erupted. Relic bolts slammed into stone, exploding in white fire. Bells rang from the church towers as the city woke to echoes of war. I dragged Sophie behind a fountain, shielding her with my body. Every shot cracked the stones around us. Rodriguez's voice rose above the gunfire, clear, commanding, "Contain the girl, kill the rest." Sophie's eyes snapped open. The mark burned again, not red now, but golden white like Naples before. "Dad," she whispered, "let me try, one last time." She raised her hand. The light surged outward, blinding. Hunters dropped their weapons, screaming. Rodriguez shielded his eyes, teeth bared in fury. When the glow faded, every rifle lay melted, every hunter unconscious. But Sophie collapsed, skin pale as marble, pulse faint. Rodriguez knelt across the piazza, staff cracked, robes torn. His voice was hoarse but certain. "You see, every time she resists, she pays. And every time the tether grows stronger. She will not survive 6 more, unless—" He leaned on his staff, staring straight at me. "Unless someone else takes her place." The piazza fell silent, broken only by Sophie's ragged breathing. Eva grabbed my arm. "Don't listen, he'll twist you into another chain." Rodriguez's gaze cut through me. "A father's love is stronger than any seal. Offer yourself, spare her." I looked down at Sophie in my arms, the girl I'd already traded 14 years of my life to bring back once. Her eyes fluttered open, whispering just loud enough for me to hear, "Don't." But the mark pulsed between us, demanding a choice. Every map ends somewhere. Ours ended at the door we were never meant to reach. 6 weeks, 6 seals. Each one nearly killed Sophie. Catacombs in Palermo, abbey ruins in Lyon, a well in Krakow where blood dripped upward instead of down. By the 5th seal, her hair streaked white. By the 6th, her voice sometimes echoed with others. And still she lived. But Naples' price haunted us. She was the tether. Every seal chained another piece of her soul. Now we stood before the 7th and final entrance. St. Joseph of the Carpenters, Rome, the same church where I first found the well. The place Sophie's journey began. The Vatican compound loomed silent. Guards gone, streets abandoned, as if the city itself knew what was coming. The well waited, older than the church above, rim glowing with red cracks. Rodriguez was already there, staff splintered but still humming. His face was gaunt, eyes hollow. "You made it further than anyone," he said. "But you know the truth now. A seal isn't just closed, it's kept. One soul forever." His gaze shifted to me. "You could take her place. The tether will accept blood of kin. Father for daughter, it's clean, it's final." Eva's knives gleamed in the candlelight. "Don't trust him. He wants you locked in so the Vatican holds Sophie on a leash." Sophie swayed on her feet, pale but defiant. "It doesn't matter. I can feel it, Dad. The mark's ready. If I take this one, it's over. The gates collapse, hell sealed forever." She looked straight into my eyes. "But it means I stay." The chamber vibrated. From the well rose whispers, screams, and one voice louder than the rest. I remember her. Hands reached from the darkness, not to grab but to beckon. Sophie trembled but didn't flinch. Rodriguez raised his staff. "Choose now, the world doesn't wait." Eva hissed, "There's always another way. Burn the seal. Break the cycle. Don't let them turn you into saints in chains." My hands shook around the relic knife. Every instinct screamed to save my daughter, but saving her meant damning the world, or damning myself instead. I pulled Sophie close, held her like she was still 12 years old, scared after a nightmare. Then I whispered, "You've carried enough. Let me carry the rest." Before she could protest, I pressed the relic knife against my palm. Blood spilled onto the seal. The mark leapt from her skin into mine like fire poured into veins. Agony ripped through me, brighter than any light. Sophie screamed, trying to hold me, but Eva dragged her back. Rodriguez whispered a prayer. The seal ignited. The well collapsed inward, stone cracking, darkness imploding. The 7 gates slammed shut in sequence, one after another, until the chamber fell silent. Hell was sealed. I sit here now, not alive, not dead, a tether. The chamber is my prison. My bones ache with centuries I haven't yet lived. The mark still burns, pulsing with every scream below. Sometimes I hear Sophie's voice calling through the cracks. Sometimes it's hers. Sometimes it isn't. Eva visits, leaving candles and water. Sophie, she promised not to return, but I feel her watching somewhere above. Rodriguez was right. The tether must remain, but he was wrong about one thing. Love isn't a weakness hell can exploit. It's the only reason the gates are still closed. If you're hearing this, it means someone found my journals. Someone knows the Vatican's secret. Do what you want with the story. Believe it or not. But remember, if the chains ever snap again, someone will have to take my place. And maybe next time it'll be you.